Hey guys, welcome to our Season 7, Episode number 3 breakdown. If you haven't already listened to our immediate reactions, which we are now calling our Rapid Fire and Ice section for Episode number 3 of Season 7, make sure to check that out before you listen to today's episode. We're going to typically start releasing that episode directly after the episode airs live, and then doing our full analysis and breakdown after that. So please sit back, crack open a cold one, and enjoy.
Hold on to your butt.
We're doing this a little different this week, so we're going to give those initial reactions up front.
Oh, we're just right in.
Yeah, we're just right in. We're recording.
I like it.
we are on. Hot mics. We got hot mics. So, and then now we're going to sort of have our traditional sort of breakdown of that episode. Now that we've had some time to let it simmer and think about some of the cool stuff that happened this week, we're going to sort of get into our analysis of the episode. A lot of people like when and listeners have been saying this, guys, they like when I sort of tap on the table. It's sort of this, it becomes sort of this like, it's not true. What the fuck is wrong with me? Okay.
You're a true John Bonham.
So, guys, in the studio with me this week, as always, John and Joe.
Hey.
Roscoe barking outside. And joining us this week on mic is Seth.
Happy to be here.
Seth, who was on the Fire and Ice, Rapid Fire and Ice. I got to get that branding down. And we've also got Beth here as well. There it is. All right. Not on mic, but hopefully, Beth, if you have something to say, just shout it out or go steal your lovely husband's microphone if there's something you'd like to say. All right. So, without any further ado, guys, let's get into this episode and start to break this down. Now, how do you guys want to do it this week? Do you want to sort of go scene by scene, location by location, or...
I think the feedback we received was it makes sense to do it chronologically.
Okay.
Kind of in order instead of, because I know, what was it, the last episode we
jumped around a bit.
And it could have gotten confusing. So.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool with me. Well, that makes it easy for this week, right? Because the most interesting thing in the world happened
Boom.
at the front of the episode. Joe, you want to take it?
20 years in the making, right? John and Dany meet, touchdown on Dragonstone, John and his little boat with Davos and friends, and then, they roll in. So what do we think about the John and Dany meeting? I feel like, for me... Dany kind of scares me overall. I can't get out of this place where she's saying all the right things. Yeah, she's the breaker of change. Yeah, she's done all these things, but it's almost as a cover-up to be like, well, yeah, I really just want to rule the Seven Kingdoms, so that's how I get there. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. She's coming from Yunkai and Marine and kind of across the narrow seas, and I feel like she's still got that same mentality of how she ruled over there, and she brought it back to Westeros, but I think she's dealing with a lot of different people here, and Jon Snow doesn't react the same way, and I think that kind of messes with her a little bit, and you see her get a little, a little angsty, and she questions it towards Tyrion, and Tyrion's got to kind of hold the ground and play middleman for Jon and back himself up.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. I think Jon doesn't have like a reverent bone in his body. Like it's not even necessarily just Jon. It's the North in general, right? The North doesn't kneel to other kings. They've made alliances in the past, and they've had relationships with whoever's sitting on the Iron Throne. But they're a proud people, and Jon encompasses everything that is the North up to this point. So it wasn't super surprising, right, to not see him give an inch in the conversation with Daenerys, where we've seen a lot of other characters this year cower in the shadow of the Mother of Dragons. By the way, shout out to that scene where they do the whole rigmarole of all the things that Daenerys is, and the Waker of Dragons, the Stormborn, Targaryen, and then Davos is
This is
Jon Snow.
Then John looks at him.
Davos had a lot.
Davos
added so much without, and having rewatched it a couple times now, he added so much to that scene without saying too much. He just jumped in at the right time to sort of say, hey, hold on, let me give this some context. I know what he's saying sounds insane, but let me just give this a little bit more context and let you know where he's coming from and why I believe this guy. It really took Tyrion to sort of sell that to Daenerys ultimately, but
yeah. Davos has this long lineage of being hand or advisor to a lot of different royalties, like Stannis and otherwise, and we see it in a scene where Tyrion obviously has been the hand before, but kind of in really random situations, and that kind of he's obviously a really well really good advisor, and Dany trusts him, but in a different light, Davos knows how to talk to the people at that level, where it's... And I felt like it was so weird that Dany had Missandei like list off all of her credentials, if you will, for why she should rule the Seven Kingdoms, and Jon, like we've talked about in the past, has one true goal now, and it's to have enough people to fight against the North, and I feel like that divide kind of is getting bigger. But on a different note, I have a really interesting question for everybody in here. So I was listening to a couple different commentaries today, and they were saying that Emilia Clarke as an actress was kind of difficult, or they're not really buying her in these situations. I personally felt like she was really, really great. She's become more and more confident, but she also has this air of uncertainty, or like she's not exactly where she should be. And I think even in a past episode at Dragonstone, she was like, this doesn't feel like home. Home feels like King's Island, or King's Landing. And I don't know what that means really, but I always feel like she's playing it really well because she has to be cold and deciphered or away from other people to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
Beth on mic.
I've just got a quick shout out here. I feel like
I'm gonna let you finish,
but
Quick Kanye.
I feel like Dany in that scene, and something that we've seen consistently, is that she never expected to be where she's at. I think that she has been kind of learning as she's gone and gotten more and more self-assured and started to really figure out her place. And I think it was maybe a couple episodes ago, and you guys can, I'm sure, quote which one I'm talking about, but when Tyrion spoke to her and said, I think you need to check yourself a little bit so that way you don't become your father, and you need to recognize the people that you're lording over, right? And be careful about how you're treating them, and give them a little space and time to figure out how they're going to adjust under your rule. And she listened to that wisdom, and she stepped back, and she figured out how she wanted to handle it. And I think in the Sunday's episode, you see that happening again, where she is presenting herself in a powerful front, and she is being self-assured and confident. And then she's stepping back behind closed doors saying, okay, advise me, and what am I not seeing? And I think that's a smart, powerful person. And I think that she is trying to do the best she can with what she's got to take control of a land that already has a very powerful ruler. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that, and I think that's a smart way to handle that. I think it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what we're seeing with Daenerys, this season especially, and in what we've seen of her so far, is a tremendous amount of focus. Like, there's so much focus coming out of her right now. Like, she's got one goal, obviously. She's had one goal for a while, but at this point she's got just this, like, unbelievable, I can't think of a better word than focus to how she can get to the throne and how she can unseat Cersei. And the way that she's going about that, to Beth's point, which is a great point, she's all about the team, man. Teamwork makes the dream work for Cersei. We don't see that, for Daenerys. We don't see that out of Cersei. And to some extent, we don't really see that out of Jon Snow. I mean, like, Jon Snow is a little bit more stubborn, and I think that's sort of what's, if there is a rub between Sansa and Jon Snow, it's that Jon Snow can be a little bit hard-headed and not take on the counsel of others and just do what is good. He's the ultimate good, but only good in how that looks to Jon Snow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, last commentary, promise. So I agree. I feel like she's saying all the right things. Sorry, hit the mic. And everything is lining up for her, but it almost looks to me sometimes like she knows what she has to say to get everybody on the right page and for the people to really believe in her. And then she turns around and says, I'm all these things already. Look at my list of credentials. Look at the people who follow me. Look at how powerful I am. I have 3 dragons. I have the Dothraki, etc., etc., etc. That just looks to me like a power hunger person. But yeah, she's saying everything correctly to get everybody around her.
I think for how she's come up in the story, she's had to kind of portray that type of that kind of attitude, though, because all throughout, like, I mean, when she was freeing all the slaves and killing slave masters and doing all that stuff, I mean, she really had to have this air about her where it was like not necessarily a no holds barred, but it was like this is the right thing to do. Whereas on the flip side, you have Cersei, who's playing with this extreme amount of cockiness and kind of, I don't know, over exaggerated sense of self. And I think Dany knows what she has to do from a political and diplomatic side. Granted, she also probably has the best political strategist in the game in Tyrion, so she's got some help there. But I think it's all trying to live out of the shadow of her father and what he was while building herself up and making it seem like she's not just a queen for the sake of being queen, but a queen for the sake of the people.
Yeah. I want to be very clear. I really like her as a character and as like the person she has become and the confidence she shows, especially over other people, and how she has become confident in herself. I just don't know what that means for the future.
Easy to be confident when you have 3 dragons.
Yeah, right. For sure.
Any other moments jump out to you guys from that initial scene? Obviously, there's a lot to break down and dissect between our first ever meeting of Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen.
Well, I mean, I was just kind of browsing the internet after Sunday, and I happened to notice Kit Harington had done an interview, and so one of the things we didn't necessarily see overtly was this long-anticipated... What?
Just get closer to the mic.
You got
There we go. Okay.
this long-anticipated love between the two of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't there unless you were looking for it.
Yeah.
And Kit Harington, in an interview he was doing, indicated that it's not out of the picture yet, but it's kind of like you have these two people who are duty-bound to do this one thing, even though their pheromones are telling them to do something else entirely. So we'll see what happens there. I think keep your eye on that.
The love relationship between Daenerys and Jon.
There was a look that happened in the second scene that they were in later in the episode that I feel as if was one of longing.
I've heard a couple people say that, and to me, I think that look was more like a look of respect, or like this look of we kind of get each other.
Do you respect and kind of get your wife?
Yeah, no, not at all. But like this level of I don't know, that moment that they had. Maybe the way we'll break this down, by the way, just moving forward in general, is just we'll stay on Dragonstone for now and just sort of talk about Dragonstone in general, and then we'll move on to the next location. So all the scenes that happen at Dragonstone and stuff too. There was that scene later in the episode at Dragonstone where they sort of had their first one-on-one outside of like the tradition and the pageantry that is the throne room. They were able to meet like outside and have like a real conversation between the two of them. And I hope it's not the last time we get to see that. I'm sure it's not. But that was the scene where she said, go ahead and mine the Dragonstone or the Dragonglass and stuff. But what I thought was really cool about that scene was like that was the first sort of conceit that Daenerys made to Jon about, okay, I know that back there I maybe have came across like I thought you sounded crazy talking about these White Walkers and talking about, you know, the Night King and all this crap. But she was like, but I got to admit, I'm sitting here looking at 3 fucking dragons flying around. And she's like, so if there can be 3 dragons when no one said there should be 3 dragons, then I can understand that maybe there's something else that I need to be considering. And back to Beth's point even, like, she's listening to the team. She's like, all right, I need to take this counsel seriously. Like, I need to take what people are telling me to heart because, you know, if I don't, that's how I become the Mad King like my father. If I don't, that's how I end up, you know, getting killed if I'm not keeping my eyes open.
And my biggest takeaway from that scene between the two of them, Daenerys made the comment that we all do what we're good at, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Speaking about Tyrion, who they just made a joke, he likes to talk. So we all do what we're good at. And Jon says, I didn't. I don't.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah. And there was that really quick, it was just like the face shot of Daenerys, and she had a very interesting look on her face, I think. It spoke a lot without any words. So I think that was interesting.
What do you think Jon was referring to?
Killing. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think he likes it very much. I think he's very good at it. He's proven himself a capable military commander and a warrior, but I don't think he enjoys it. I don't think he enjoys being king in the North.
Which, that quote is a very fun tie-in if you kind of read into the spoilers and kind of some of the things that people tend to believe online. Yes, I read a lot of that stuff, but if you're supposed to believe the whole Rhaegar plus Lyanna idea, that Rhaegar also admitted that he doesn't love killing. So it's a nice little tie-in if that's what that's supposed to mean.
Another little wink and
Not
nod.
necessarily,
Yeah.
but right, a wink and a nod to the readers and the fans, and I mean, Benioff and Weiss are pretty good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another question here. I don't want to take us too off topic, but I do think it pertains to what we're talking about here. why is it so difficult for people to believe that the White Walkers are real? Like, why is it
Yeah.
so difficult? They built a fucking wall. Like, there's a wall for a reason. Like, they